Hello, my name is Dave Dio, and I'm the Arcom Labs and Arcom Digital Product Support Engineering Manager. Today, I would like to talk about QBrowser. QBrowser is the application that we use to communicate with all portable devices, whether it is the Xcore or QuampSnare product lines. Today, we're going to focus on the Navigator Plus and how to set up a Navigator Plus using QBrowser. But before I begin, I need to download the QBrowser app and some Navigator Plus firmware to demonstrate. Using my browser, I'm going to navigate to arcomdigital.com. And I'm going to select the Resources page. I'm going to scroll down the Resources page to the Install and Update section. And I'm going to download two things. First is going to be QBrowser Setup 7.0.0.3. At the time you download QBrowser, a new version may be available on the website. Secondly, I'm going to download some firmware for the Navigator Plus. I'm going to select this one here, Navigator Plus N37311.exe. And OK. Now I'll open my file manager and go to my Downloads folder. And you can see here are the two files that I downloaded. First, I'm going to install QBrowser. Double-click and follow the prompts. Click Next to Setup. I'm going to create a desktop icon and a quick launch icon and install. I'm not going to launch QBrowser at this time, so I'm going to click that radio button and click Finish. Next, I'm going to install the Navigator Plus N37311 firmware package. This happens very quickly. All I need to do is double click. It's going to flash in front of my eyes a message, and then it's going to close automatically. There it goes. Let's go see what that did. I'm going to navigate to the C drive, the QuampSnare folder, and there's a folder, Nav Plus N37311. I will open it, and here I see a hex file for the microprocessor. And in this folder, I find some binary files for the Fpga. Both will be used by QBrowser to update the firmware in the Navigator Plus. Now, when QBrowser installed, it left an icon on my desktop. I'm going to launch QBrowser by clicking the icon, and immediately it gives me an error. It says, check the cable connection and power, then reconnect. Click OK, and I'm going to close QBrowser. Now I will bring in my Navigator Plus. Now I'm just going to install my USB cable in the Navigator Plus cradle. After you connect your USB cable, check to make sure that the little computer icon is present next to the battery charger indicator. This indicates that the Nav Plus is able to communicate with QBrowser. So now let's try launching QBrowser again. Click. And I can click on Settings. And I can see all of the user settings available for the Nav Plus. In the top left-hand corner, we see the device ID. The device ID is unique. It's actually the MAC address of the Wi-Fi module inside the unit, so it cannot be duplicated and it cannot be changed. Technician ID allows the user to install his own personal ID, and that personal ID will be seen in some other reporting through QuampSnare Manager or some other database connected to our servers. Fsk Carrier, Fsk Timeout is not used for QuampSnare. That's used for the Xcore product line. Standard, you have three choices: NTSC, PAL-BG, PAL-DK. For the domestic United States, we will only be selecting NTSC. Calibration coefficients are factory installed, and we advise not to make any changes in these fields unless otherwise directed. Below the calibration coefficients, there is an Ofdm button. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. And down here, you can see the software release of the Navigator Plus connected to QBrowser, along with its MAC address. On the right-hand side, there are two profiles. One profile is for Wi-Fi. The second profile is for the server. The Wi-Fi profile allows you to install your hotspot credentials so that your Navigator Plus can connect to your hotspot. The server profile is used to install whatever server or servers your Nav Plus will be communicating with. So let's set up the Nav Plus for the user. The first thing I'm going to do is change this tech ID. That Arcom Nav Plus, that is a default tech ID that comes from the factory. My name is Dave Dio, and I'm going to put in Dave Dio. That is my tech ID. I'm in the United States, so I'm going to be selecting NTSC. I'm not going to touch my calibration coefficients. We'll talk about Ofdm in just a moment. The Wi-Fi profile and the server profiles are factory installed, and we're going to recommend that you first delete all of them. So right now I can see that I only have one Wi-Fi profile. It's called exit only. Again, that is a factory setting. I'm going to click delete profile, acknowledge, and that profile is now gone. And if I look at the server profiles, there are two of them. There's one for Arcom Lab Server and there's one for Arcom Amazon. Again, these are factory settings used for factory testing, and I'm going to delete both. First, I'm going to delete Arcom Lab Server. Okay. And then I'm going to delete Arcom Amazon. Delete. And it's always good practice, after you make some major setting changes, click OK, go back to the main menu, and click Settings again. Make sure everything you changed is correct. Technician ID is correct. There are no profiles. I'm good to go. So first, I want to create a new Wi-Fi profile. So in the Wi-Fi area, I'm going to select Create Profile. And I'm going to enter in two things. The APN, which in this case is going to be Verizon, hyphen capital MIFI 6620L hyphen C8DD. And the password for this Wi-Fi, and this is cap sensitive, A84 FD655. I quickly change the focus of QBrowser to take it off of the password field and click OK. Now we'll go back in and check. Pull down the list, I see only one Wi-Fi is installed and the password is protected. Now I'm going to install a server. Click Create Server, and I'm going to enter the new server name, and I'm going to call this Arcom Digital. Next, I have the option to install a URL or an IP address. In this case, I'm going to install a URL. That is going to be quamarcom.dyndns.org. Doesn't look like I spelled that right. quamarcom.dyndns.org. Check to make sure everything is okay. Click OK. Go back into Settings. Make sure the new server you installed is correct. Arcom Digital, quamarcom.dyndns.org. Great. Finally, I want to talk about this Ofdm button. I'm going to click that. And I have right now two bands that I can set up for Ofdm. I'm going to set up channel 46 in the midband for my Ofdm channels. First, for the channel pull down, I'm going to select channel 46. And now I'm going to install my frequencies, which are 355.159.943. And by the way, you must always have 6 digits after the decimal point. We're actually putting in 1 hertz accuracy here. And the upper frequency is going to be 356.639941. Now I'm going to click OK. Click Ofdm one more time. Everything looks good. 159.943.639941. Good. Here's a few QBrowser tech tips. The Arcom Navigator, Navigator Plus, and Snoop Wi-Fi broadcast at 2.4 gigahertz only. There's no need for a 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi hotspot when using Arcom products. You can cut and paste from any document through your computer clipboard into QBrowser. Avoid using special characters. Be sure to differentiate between the letter O and the number 0. Default to the number 0 if you're unsure. And finally, keep the number of iPad characters to 15 or under. And finally, in settings, I want to talk about two buttons left, Save and Load. This allows you to save the credentials that were installed into the Navigator Plus to a file. And so if you have a technician, for some reason he needs to replace his Navigator Plus, you can save the credentials from his original Navigator, and then you can load his original credentials into his new Navigator and send him on his way. So first what we're going to do is click Save. And my QBrowser defaulted to Detector Credentials. This is a folder that I created in my Documents folder. You can create any folder you would like and then simply navigate to that folder to save the settings. So for the Navigator Plus I'm setting up now, I'm just going to name this file Dave Dio. Save. Now suppose I have a new Navigator Plus. Again, I have Arcom Navi Plus as my tech ID. I have the Arcom default Wi-Fi settings and the Arcom default server settings. So I want to add the credentials for Dave Dio into this Navigator Plus. So I'm going to select Load, and it should go to my credentials folder. I'm going to click Dave Dio's settings and click Open. Click OK, and go back in and make sure everything is okay. Click Settings. Tech ID is Dave Dio. There's the Wi-Fi hotspot I just installed, and here's a server I just installed. This Navigator is ready to go. Here's a QBrowser tech tip. After completing your QBrowser activities, it's always good practice to close QBrowser, cycle the device power, open QBrowser, and check your new settings. Next, I want to demonstrate how to upgrade firmware. I'm going to click the Update Software button, acknowledge that I want to update the software, and it presents me with two options: program the microprocessor or the Fpga. Rarely will the Fpga firmware need to be upgraded. If your Fpga firmware needs to be upgraded, then the microprocessor firmware will also need to be upgraded. Always upgrade the microprocessor first. I'm going to click the Micro Radio button and click OK. Now you'll see QBrowser disappeared and PIC32 bootloader launched. At the same time, you will see that the Navigator screen changed to an Update Software message. The first thing I'm going to do is click Enable, which is inside the USB dialog boxes, and then click Connect. Device connected. Next thing to do is to load the hex firmware file. Now you may need to navigate to the correct folder, and if you remember, when we installed the firmware package from the website, it created a folder called QuamSnare directly off of your C drive. So I'm going to open QuamSnare. Here's the folder that it extracted, N37311. Open that folder, and there's the hex file for the microprocessor firmware. Select and click Open, and then Erase Program Verify. So this takes a few moments. You can see that the flash erased, and it is currently programming. There, it says programming completed, verification successful. Now let me talk about that verification successful message. That means that the information in the hex file that you installed is identical to the firmware and settings inside the Navigator Plus. Later on, as you use your Navigator Plus and you change settings and then you go to install a firmware update, you may see this say verification failed. That simply means that the hex file did not match the Navigator Plus firmware and settings exactly. No big deal. You can be confident that when programming completed shows your Navigator Plus is programmed properly. So the next very important step is to click Run Application. And here you'll see that the Navigator Plus will reboot. Now you've gone to the patent screen and to the main menu. Now I can close the bootloader. After programming either the microprocessor or the FPGA, it's always a good idea to cycle your USB connection. So I'm going to pull the USB connection. I've lost my computer icon, and now I'm going to reinstall my computer connection and relaunch QBrowser. Now let's update the FPGA firmware. Acknowledge that I am updating software. Select FPGA and click OK. Now again, I may need to navigate to the proper folder. So that will be C drive, Quam snare, and Nav Plus N3 7311. And then if you remember, this folder contains the binary files for the FPGA. This dialog says select folder. You will not see individual file names here. Click OK. Acknowledge that you've got the correct folder. And you are programming. So this takes about 8 minutes. One thing I want to demonstrate is that if QBrowser loses focus on the Navigator Plus while programming, for instance, I'm going to just click another icon over here. QBrowser has lost focus. Now I'm coming over to QBrowser. It says it's not responding. But if I look at the Navigator Plus screen, I still see that the programming percentage is increasing. This means that QBrowser is not actually frozen. It's doing its thing. It just does not need to show you what it's doing. So let's just be patient, and through the magic of video manipulation, I'm going to fast forward about 7 minutes up to 98, 99%. 98%, 99%, 100%. My Navigator Plus goes back to the main menu, and I get a software updated successfully message from QBrowser. Click OK. Now, after I've installed new programming for the Navigator Plus, I'm going to cycle the power on the Navigator Plus. Wait just a few moments. In fact, I'm also going to close QBrowser. Start Navigator Plus again. Launch QBrowser. Settings. And now you can see my new software release is N3 7311. Now after all operations are complete with the Navigator Plus, let's make sure that the settings carried through. First I'm going to select the Info button, and I can see the Tech ID name is Dave Dio, firmware is N3 7311, and I can see the Wi-Fi credentials installed in the device. Let's select Settings, and I want to check to make sure that the Wi-Fi profile I just installed was selected. So I'm going to select Wi-Fi profile, and I'm actually going to select the Wi-Fi profile for both truck and walk mode for what I just installed. You may see multiple profiles here. Next, let's check the server. Exit, QS server. There's Archon Digital, and again, you may have several servers to select. Make sure you select the one you're interested in. Exit. And finally, I just want to go into the Leakage Detector, and I want to look at that mid-band channel where I selected Ofdm. We'll select Ofdm as in our profile. And here I can see is channel 46. And my harmonic frequencies are 355, 159, 943, and 356, 639, 941. Now I would like to demonstrate how to overcome a firmware update failure. So let's click Update Software, and again, let's select Microprocessor, click OK. QBrowser closes and the bootloader application opens. I'm going to select USB, connect. I'm going to load the hex file. Click, click. And I'm going to start the program. Now I'm going to simulate this failure by pulling the USB cable. Device disconnected. You can see the Navigator screen is still showing that update firmware message. So at this point, I'm going to close the bootloader. Confirm exit. I'm going to reinstall my USB cable. I'm going to launch my file manager, and I'm going to navigate to the folder C drive, program files x86, Arcom Digital, and I'm currently using QBrowser 7002. Here you'll see a list of files, but the file I'm interested in is PIC32UBL. That is the bootloader. Open that file. Select USB Enable. Connect. Load the hex file. Erase Program Verify. And now it is starting to reprogram. Good. Verification successful. Run application. The Navigator Plus reboots. Now I can disconnect and close. Good. I'm going to cycle the power on the Navigator Plus just to be sure. Close the file manager and reopen QBrowser. Now let's show you how to recover from an Fpga failure. Click Fpga, click OK. Select that folder that has the current firmware in it. Click OK, acknowledge, and it starts to program. And I can see from the display the programming percentage is increasing. To simulate this failure, again, I'm going to pull the USB cable. Now I see a copy error appear over QBrowser. Okay, no big deal. We'll just acknowledge that. I'm going to reinstall my USB. And actually, I'm going to recycle the Navigator Plus. Now I'll turn the Navigator Plus back on. First thing I see is an Fpga error saying that the Fpga isn't programmed properly. No big deal. I'm just going to reprogram it again. You'll see that the settings button and even the software update buttons are not highlighted, but the connect button is. That tells me that the QBrowser is not connected to the Navigator Plus, and I'm just going to simply click connect. There's my settings. Oh, by the way, my Fpga firmware version is 0. Nothing there. Cancel. Let's just reprogram the Fpga, this time with no errors. Select the folder, acknowledge. It starts to program, and again, through the magic of video manipulation, I'm going to speed this up about 7 minutes. %, 99%, 100%. Software uploaded successfully. We're back to the main menu. Acknowledge. I'm going to cycle the power on the Navigator Plus. Restart. Select info. And I can see N37311 firmware is correct. Also, I can go into settings. No big deal. That happened because I cycled the power. All I need to do is reconnect. Settings, N37311. I hope this overview of QBrowser and setting up a Navigator Plus was beneficial for you. If there are any other videos we can help you with, please don't hesitate to send me an email at the link below. For any other technical questions, please feel free to call any of the field engineers in your area at the numbers below.